today's lesson, we are going to discuss the relationship between roots and coefficients of quadratic equations. So I know that you already watched the nature of roots of the quadratic equation, and I hope that you learned something po. Hi kids, so welcome to our YouTube channel. So after watching this lesson or this video lesson, you should be able to determine the sum and the product of the roots of quadratic equation, investigate the relationship between the sum and the product of roots of a quadratic equation with respect to the coefficients of its terms, and find the quadratic equation if there are given roots or given the sum and product of its roots po. Before we start, let us find the roots of the following quadratic equations. So let's recall the different ways on how we're going to solve for the zeros or the roots of quadratic equations. Let's have first example 1. We have here 4x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. 4x squared is an example of difference of two squares. And if we are going to factor difference of two squares, we have this a squared minus b squared is equal to a plus b times a minus b, or the sum and the difference of binomial. So if we're going to factor 4x squared minus 9, we're going to take the square root of 4x squared. So we have 2x square root of 9 is 3, and represent the factors as a sum and difference po. Therefore, if we're going to factor 4x squared minus 9 is equal to 0, we have here 4x squared minus 9 is equal to 0, and the factors are 2x minus 3, 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. Then, equate each factor to 0. So 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. 2x is equal to positive 3. Divide both sides by 2. X is equal to 3 over 2. The first root is equal to 3 over 2, which is given here po. And the other root, 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. 2x is equal to negative 3 po. Then, divide by 2. Therefore, x is equal to negative 3 over 2, which is also here as the given root po. After determining the roots, we're going to find the sum. Hence, the sum will be equal to 0. And its product is equal to negative 9 over 4, since negative 3 times positive 3 is negative 9. And 2 times 2 is equal to 4. So for our first quadratic equation, we use the difference of two squares for us to factor this given equation. So here po yung ating rule and how we're going to factor difference of two squares. Let's have the second equation. X squared minus 2x minus 4 is equal to 0. We are going to find the roots using quadratic formula. So instead of thinking of the factors, it is the easiest way to solve for the roots. Always remember po that the quadratic formula is equal to x, which is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a po. Then solve for x. X is equal to, the given b is negative, so negative times negative 2 plus minus the square root of b, negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 4 all over 2 times 1. Then x is equal to Negative times positive is positive 2, plus minus 2 squared, negative 2 squared rather, is 4. 4 times 1 times negative 4 is negative 16. And since this is minus po, this will become positive 16 po. All over 2, which is equal to the product of 2 times 1. Then, simplify po natin yun nasa loob ng radical sign. So, 2 plus minus the square root of 20 all over 2. Simplify po again. And 20, ang square root po ng 20, ang factor po ng 20 na may perfect square po ay 4 and 5. So, and then, the square root of 4 is 2 times square root of 4. Therefore, we have 2 positive negatives, 2 square root of 5 all over 2. And if we're going to simplify po this, we have 2 over 2 plus minus 2 square root of 5 over 2. Since we are going to express 2 over 2 into 1, so kaya naging 1 po ito, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1. So we have only square root of 5 here po. And we separate plus minus, so we have 2 roots here. Unequal po sila. And yung kanila pong nature of roots ay irrational po since meron po tayong square root of 5 here. Then we have the roots 1 square root of 5 and 1 minus the square root of 5. Then, if we're going to find the sum, just add the similar terms. We are going to add 1 plus 1 is 2. And square root of 5 minus the square root of 5 is 0 na po. Kaya po, 2 na lang po yung sagot natin for the sum. Next po, we have the product. In this given root, this is an example of sum and difference of binomial. So we're going to apply the FOIL method or use simply the sum and the difference of binomial. So we can have its product using this method po or using this way po. So using this method, we can simply get the product. We have 1 squared minus the square root of 5 squared is equal to 1 minus square root of 5 squared is 5. Since square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is square root of 25. And square root of 25 is 5. Or we can simply cancel po the root and the square here. Since 5 raised to 1/2 raised to 2. Since the radical or the square root represent the exponent to 1/2. So if we're going to multiply the exponent to 1/2 times 2 is 1. So 5 raised to 1 is equal to 5 po. Then we have the difference 1 minus 5, negative 4. So we have here negative 4 as the product of these roots po. We're going to observe the roots that we have found out in the previous slide po. We try to recall the equation given. We have there 4x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. And the roots are negative 3 over 2 and positive 3 over 2. If we're going to identify the values of A, B, and C, we have A is equal to 4, B is equal to 0 since there is no linear term, and C is equal to negative 9. If we're going to find the sum of the roots, we're going to add the roots. So if we're going to add the roots, the sum is 0. So 0 po yung ating sum. Tingnan po natin yung value ng b sa ating given equation. The value of b is 0. And we are to divide the value of b by the coefficients of a and multiplied by the negative to find the sum of the roots. Kita naman natin dito na if we're going to prove that the sum of the roots is equal to negative b over a, this is how quadratic formula is used. So, ito po yung ating quadratic formula, di ba po? Pinaghiwalay lang po yung ating plus minus since we are getting the values of the roots, the positive, and using the negative or minus here. And we know that quadratic equations have two roots po. And using the quadratic formula also, and having these two roots of, or this formula on how we're going to find the roots of quadratic equation using this given formula or the quadratic formula, we can conclude that the product of the roots is equal to the coefficients of c over a po. Then, recall po natin yung ating equation ulit. We have 4x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. The value of a is 4. The value of b is 0. And the value of c is negative 9. The roots that we found out are negative 3 over 2 and positive 3 over 2. So if we're going to multiply, we have negative 3 times 3, negative 9 over 2 times 2, which is equal to 4. Which is a proof that the product of the roots is equal to c over a. Since the value of c in the given equation is negative 9, and the value of a is equal to 4. Have you understand? Did you get it now? To summarize, if x sub 1 and x sub 2 are roots or solutions of the quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, and a is not equal to 0, then the sum of the roots is equal to negative b over a. So ito po. And the product of the roots is equal to the coefficient of c over the coefficient of a po. Let's have this example. Find the sum and product of the roots of the equations 2x squared minus 13x minus 7 is equal to 0. Let us first identify the values of a, b, and c. A is equal to 2, b is equal to negative 13, c is equal to negative 7. So if we're going to find the sum of the roots, we're going to use negative b over a, so negative times negative 13 over 2. So negative times negative 13 is positive 13 over 2. And the product of the roots is equal to c over a. So what is the value of c? It's negative 7 divided by 2. So we have negative 7 over 2 as our product. For you to solve, let us have these practice exercises. We have 5 quadratic equations given. Let's first determine the values of a, b, and c in each quadratic equation. A is equal to 1, b is equal to 5, c is equal to 0 since there is no constant term. For number 2, a is equal to 3. So we're going to write it first in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So we have 3x squared. From positive, magiging negative po since nag-transpose po siya sa left. Then, yung negative 1 magiging positive 1 equals to 0. Therefore, a is equal to 3, b is equal to negative 2, and c is equal to 1. For number 3, A is equal to 1 half, B is equal to negative 17 over 6, and C is equal to negative 1. For number 4, let us first write it in ax squared plus bx plus c. Then we have 4x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. Then a is equal to 4, b is equal to 0, and c is equal to negative 9. For number 5, we have a is equal to 1, b is equal to positive 19, and c is equal to negative 7. Let us find the roots of the different quadratic equation. For number 1, we are going to use negative b over a. So negative times 5 over 1. Then we have negative 5 as our sum. And the product, c over a, c is equal to 0 over 1. Then the product is equal to 0. For number 2, the value of b is negative 2 all over 3. Then the sum is equal to negative times negative 2 is positive all over 3. So 2/3 po yung sum. For the product, we have 1 as the value of c over 3. The product is 1/3. For number 3, we have negative times negative 17 over 6 divided by a, 1 half. Then we have negative times negative 17 over 6 times 1 half. So yung 1 half po ay magiging 2 na lang since we're going to reciprocate it po. So we have 17 over 6 times 2 over 1. Then we have 3. 17 over 3 po as the sum. And the product, negative 1 all over 1 half. Then we have negative 1, reciprocal of 1 half is 2. Then the product is equal to negative 2. For number 4, sum 0 over 4 is equal to 0. And the product, negative 9 over 4. For number 5, the sum 19 over 1 is equal to 19. For the product, negative 7 over 1, which is equal to negative 7. After determining the sum and the product of the roots, this time we're going to write a quadratic equation given the roots. If x sub 1 and x sub 2 are the roots of a quadratic equation, then the quadratic equation is given by x squared minus the sum of the roots, x, plus the product of the roots is equal to 0. So ito po yung magiging equation natin na gagamitin to find a quadratic equation po, given the roots po. So, naging minus po siya since negative po yung ating dito. So, nagiging positive po kapag negative po yung ating sum. As is naman po yung value ng c. These are examples po before we do the exercises po. We have the given roots, 0 and negative 3. So, if we're going to add, 0 plus negative 3 is equal to negative 3. 0 times negative 3 is equal to 0. And substitute po natin dito sa equation na ito yung ating sum and product. X squared minus the sum, which is equal to negative 3. And the product is equal to 0. Simplifying po, we have now the quadratic equation x squared plus 3x is equal to 0. For the second example, square root of 6 over 2 and negative square root of 6 over 2. Since the square root of 6 over 2 plus negative square root of 6 over 2, positive negative po sila, then the sum is equal to 0. And the product, square root of 6 times the square root of 6 is the square root of 36. And the square root of 36 is 6. And then 2 times 2 is 4, and copy the negative sign since positive times negative is negative. And its lowest term po is negative 3 over 2 po. Then, substituting po the sum and the product of the roots to this equation, we have x squared minus 0x, since 0 po yung sum, plus the quantity of negative 3 over 2, since negative 3 over 2 po yung c. Then, we have now x squared minus 3 over 2 is equal to 0. Since fraction po yung ating c, we can write it po as x squared minus 3 over 2 is equal to 0. We can multiply rather 2 in all its terms to have a whole number coefficient. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. Then 3 over 2 times 2 is 3, which is equal to 0. So, ayan na po. These are the exercises. Let us first determine the sum of the first given roots. 5 plus negative 10. The sum is negative 5. And the product, 5 times negative 10, is equal to negative 50. And its quadratic equation is x squared minus negative 5x minus 50 is equal to 0. Simplifying po, x squared, negative times negative, positive 5x minus 50 is equal to 0. So, ito na po yung ating quadratic equation. For number 2, we're going to add 1 plus 2i over 3 plus 1 minus 2i over 3. So, cancel na po yung 2i since 2i minus 2i is 0. Therefore, we are going to add 1 plus 1, 2, and copy the denominator. 2/3 po ang ating sum. And for the product, we have 1 plus 2i. So, we're going to use the product using the sum and the difference of binomial po. Then, square of 1 is 1. Square of 2i is 4i squared. And negative po yung ating sign, di ba? Or minus, di ba po? Since a plus b times a minus b is equal to a squared minus b squared. And then, I squared is equal to negative 1. Gamitin natin yung I squared or yung negative 1 dito sa ating nakuhang product. 1 minus 4 times negative 1. 1 minus 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Then we have 1 plus 4 is equal to 5. Therefore, the product of the roots is equal to 5 po yung numerator, then we're going to multiply the denominator. 3 times 3 is equal to 9. We have 5 over 9. Then, substitute po natin x squared minus the sum, 2/3 x plus 5 over 9 is equal to 0. Then, we have now x squared plus 2/3 x plus 5 over 9 is equal to 0. We can multiply the LCD to have whole number coefficients. So, 9 po. Magkakaroon po tayo ng 9x squared plus 9 times 2 is 18 divided by 3 is 6x. 9 times 5 is 45 divided by 9 is 5 is equal to 0. Therefore, this is now our quadratic equation given these roots. For number 3, we have square root of 13 over 5 and negative square root of 13 over 5. So they are inverse of one another. So the sum is equal to square root of 13 minus the square root of 13 all over 5 is 0. Since square root of 13 minus the square root of 13 is 0. And the product, square root of 13 over 5 times negative square root of 13 over 5. So positive times negative is negative. And we can cancel po the radical sign. So we have here 13 over 25 po. Then, substituting to the equation, x squared minus 0x minus 13 over 25 is equal to 0. Then, multiplying 25 para ma-eliminate po yung ating denominator dito sa C. We have 25x squared minus 13 is equal to 0. So, ito na po yung ating quadratic equation for number 3. We have here an example that we are going to solve. If r and s are the roots of x squared minus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0, find the value of the expressions r squared plus s squared and r cubed plus s cubed. For the given quadratic equation, and we're going to find the value of this expression. Let us first recall the square of binomial of a plus b. The square of binomial is equal to a squared plus a times b is ab times 2 yung ating constant multiplier to get the value of our middle term. So we have 2ab plus square of b, b squared. We are going to use this rule or this value para mahanap natin yung expression or para mahanap natin yung value ng ating expression. So, kung titignan po natin dito, meron na tayong a squared, which is also equivalent to r squared, and b squared, which is also equivalent to s squared. Since this is the product of this square, or the square of this binomial, we're going to subtract 2ab to find the value of this expression. Kasi nga po, a squared plus b squared lang po yung hinahanap. So, from this binomial, we're going to subtract 2ab. So, let us change the variables po. R plus s squared minus 2 rs. Since the square of r plus s is equal to r squared plus 2rs plus s squared. So if we're going to subtract 2rs, we can have the expression r squared plus s squared. And since we can find the value of the sum of the roots and the product, we can substitute it in this given or in this form. What is now the sum and the product of the roots of this equation? Since we have r and s as our roots, we're going to find the sum by r plus s is equal to negative b over a is equal to negative times negative 4 over 1. The value of b is negative 4. Therefore, the sum of the roots is equal to positive 4. Then the product is equal to c over a. The value of c is 3 and the value of a is 1. Thus, the product is equal to positive 3. Substituting to this expression, we can have the sum is equal to 4 squared minus 2 times the product, which is equal to 3. Simplify po. 4 squared is equal to 16 minus 2 times 3, which is equal to 6. the value of this expression is equal to 10. Next, we are going to find the value of the expression r cubed plus s cubed. Let us first recall in how we do factoring sum of cubes. R cube and S cube are both cubes since exponent po nila ay 3. This can be factored as R plus S. So cube root of R cube is R, cube root of S cube is S, and copy the plus sign. Then, the trinomial factor is equal to the square of R squared, the product of R and S, RS. Since this is plus, the middle term of this trinomial factor is minus. And the third term is the square of S. So yan po yung factor ng ating R cube plus S cube. We know that we have already the value of this factor since this represents the sum of the roots. And we have already solved the value of r squared and s squared on the previous slide since the given equation is the same po. Therefore, we can substitute now the values. R plus S is equal to 4. The sum of the roots. RS is equal to 3. And R squared plus S squared is equal to 10. So, nanggaling po ito sa ating kaninang slide po. Then, we have R plus S is equal to 4 times R squared plus S squared is 10 minus RS is equal to 3. Therefore, 4 times 10 minus 3 is 7. And the value of the expression R cubed plus S cubed is equal to 28 po. Find k such that negative 3 is a root of x squared plus kx minus 24 is equal to 0. We know that the sum of the roots is equal to negative b over 2a. Then, we have x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is equal to negative b over a. X sub 1 is negative 3 since given na po yung isang root. Plus x sub 2 is equal to negative. The value of b here in the given equation is k. And the value of a is equal to 1. Therefore, we have negative 3 plus x squared is equal to negative k. And we're going to use the product rule or the product of the roots. X sub 1 times x sub 2 is equal to c over a. X sub 1 is negative 3, x sub 2 is unknown, is equal to, the value of c is negative 24, and the value of a is equal to 1. Then we have negative 3x sub 2 is equal to negative 24. To find the value of x sub 2, we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. Therefore, x sub 2, since negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1, is equal to positive 8. Since negative 24 divided by negative 3 is positive. And substitute po natin dito sa ating nakuhang equation. Negative 3 plus 8 is equal to negative k. Negative 3 plus 8 is positive 5 is equal to negative k. Therefore, we are going to divide negative 1 to solve for the value of k. 5 divided by negative 1 is negative 5. Negative k divided by negative 1 is positive k. Therefore, k is equal to negative 5 po. Thank you for watching this video and I hope that you learned something po. Thank you also to our dear subscribers for your continuous support and for the love. Thank you everyone. God bless and stay safe po.